Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Safe Space with Cheyenne. Today in the Safe Space, I have Dr. Michelle LaMasa-Dawson, also known as a doctor of mind-body medicine. Not only does she have soul-free transformations, but she has so many modalities and certifications hidden underneath this. I had to not only bring her on today because she is an international best-selling author, but she has a tremendous life story that's evolved over time. I think she's just an absolute example of what it means to keep going and just keep moving the stream of life. So we're going to bring Michelle on. We're going to talk about her lovely story and how she got into the work she's doing today.
Hello, Cheyenne. It's so fun. And it's also fun to hear that. It reminded me of a book that I read in grad school called Aging Well. And I wanted to be that person that ages well, to continue to learn and to have friends that are younger, to have friends that are older, to have spirituality and just that whole learn from life kind of thing. So that's what it reminded me of. So I'm super happy to be with you, and thank you for honoring me and allowing me to be with you today.
When I first met you on a little tea time meetup, immediately when you came on screen, you have such a powerhouse energy and such a bright smile. Your eyes smile, and it's just a very welcoming aura. I thought when we were starting, and then when you told me bits of your story and all the education, I was like, man, I love to meet another person that's just a student of life, and you're definitely further along the path than I am. So.
Just a little bit
even
older. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, like a year or two. Nothing crazy. But you really are just you have a very inspiring energy about you. So bringing you on and showing you to, I would say, the world with the way this digital platform works, I'm excited to just hear about all the ways that you've had your ups, you've had your downs, but really how you deal with it. And again, just being a student of life, I think, just keeps you young no matter how old you really are or how your body feels. So, where do you want to start this story off?
Wow, there's so much just in that what you said. I was like, wow, we could go down this direction or this direction, and maybe we could just start with the international bestseller, the chapter that I wrote for that.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
So the title of my chapter is My 5 Last Names, A Journey Towards Transformation. And it's really about how having 5 last names, being married 3 times, having a father that didn't raise me, but a dad that adopted me, and that every junction, every name that I carried brought so much more learning and growing, and that I did learn early on, but I also feel like it was like a divine calling that I wanted to be the hands and feet of Jesus. That at that point I was very religious. Now I'm not so religious, but that whole be the hands and feet of Jesus, that's really what I want to be. And so it's so beautiful to hear that is what I'm representing. When you see my smile, and I'm thinking in the background, my mom paid a lot of money for that. My mom and dad, they it's because even in that, there's a story. And so I love people's stories. I think we heal by story. All the indigenous peoples of the world have used story to heal. And so that's what I help people to bring their story to the surface and to kind of dive in to heal that past trauma, because all of us have trauma. It doesn't work that you don't. And so, it could, but it's somehow the school of hard knocks is all about trauma. so that's kind of, a roundabout way of how I got here.
Okay, so you said you had 3 last names, and then you had your original name and then an adopted name. Is that correct?
Right. So my mother and father, so my story is kind of crazy, but I was conceived in the back or I don't know, in the back or not, but in a Volkswagen. And it wasn't great circumstances. And my mom wanted to break up with my father, and they got pregnant that day. And so they went to Vegas, they got married. And so like, that's, part of all of that. And then he was just super dysfunctional and had lots of boundary issues and lots of sexual boundary issues. And so my mom, like, she found the strength to save us. He had tried to like kill us a couple of times, and it was like a big deal. And that was just the first year. And so my dad, who became my dad, was my father's best friend. And he saw the way that my father was treating my mom, and he befriended her. He fell in love with she and I, and he had prayed that he would have a girl one day. What Italian guy do you know that prays for a girl? And he honestly thought that he wasn't going to be able to have children. And so my mom with me, and he took my mom to the hospital to have me. So he's always been in my life. And so it's really such an amazing thing that wasn't raised with my father, thankfully, because, like, just the boundary issues that he did have, it would maybe have made so that I couldn't be as healthy, and so trauma does, perpetuate. And so I do believe it was like, kind of get scooped up and saved in some ways. And so then I was LaMasa, and that's how I got the name LaMasa. And interestingly, conceived in a car. My first last name was Carmona. So it's like, I tell people, you really can't make things up. It really is an interesting thing of how synchronicities and little different things happen. And it's really something. And so my mom named me Michelle for the Beatles song. And
your mom is a wonderful one.
And I loved the Beatles so much so that I married George, was my first husband, and John was my second husband. And so I was like, was somewhere along the line in learning recall healing, like, I live in Georgia. My husband, so my third husband, his name is Mark. And I was like, yes, I broke it. We're good. Except for the fact that Mark Chapman killed John Lennon. And I almost went to Chapman University. And here I am, married to my third husband. And so 3 husbands, 2 dads, and one father and 1 dad. And that's how I got here.
I feel just by the way that you can tell your childhood story, that you've done a tremendous amount of inner child work and forgiveness and having compassion for maybe the generational trauma that he had instilling on your mom and on you. Because you just have such a, like, it's positive and poetic way of talking about extremely dark topics, which is common in, I think, extremely healed, like, doctors, and especially in mind, body, spirit. Like, I could hear you understand soul contracts, you understand synchronicity. Just because we deem it as good or bad, like, we're just labeling something good or bad. You have a really good neutral way of telling your story. And that's what I like most about trying to pick out details of what you're saying. I'm like, whoa, a car. Okay, your dad tried to kill you. That's really awful. Like I'm still like nodding and smiling along to it. But what modalities did you get into? Because I mean, we could go into your educational background, because you have quite an array of those, the certifications that you do. But how did you personally start going and unpacking all of these things, especially through 3 marriages and just continuous trauma after trauma?
Well, I think that, there's been little things. There's been really amazing mentors along the way. Like, I feel like that the divine gave me these really amazing mentors that kind of took me under their wing. They kind of guided me. And my mom, she really wanted to do the best for us, because that she didn't get that. And so out of her woundedness, that's how she actually parented, which then takes us a lot to get over those kinds of things too. And you're right. Like, I've done lots and lots of work. It never ends. So people ask me, how long? Good luck with that. It's like you just keep going, keep growing. That's what we say. And ultimately, you start to glow because you're doing the work and you're transforming into the person that you were always meant to be. And so you're right, like especially about my father. And it was like, oh wow, like I come from that family tree with all this like sexual dysfunction and woohoo, and just even my own woundedness around sexuality, that manifested in many ways. And so there was something there, especially from early on. Like I was the little girl that was telling dirty jokes and everything was nasty. I was such a naughty girl. But I wasn't. I was just wounded because I had a wounded father and a wounded mother in that area. And so, of course, the child becomes the mirror for what we all have to work on. And so of course, though, 60s and 70s, that's not something you talk about. That's not something you do. But it was instilled in me that there's something wrong with me. And like I could see no value. But that's also, my mom was given up for adoption completely. She was in 13 different foster homes before she was 2 years old. She was sexually abused. She was physically abused. So that's going to manifest in, living outside of reality. And so she struggled with depression, wanting to choose death by suicide. She prayed that I'd be a girl because a girl was going to save her life. So for many years, I did keep my mom alive. I did help her to see her value. And then I moved out of California and I started, making some boundaries, but I saw my mom suffer a lot. And we know that when you have early childhood trauma, it can manifest in somatic issues. So my mom's had like 30 or 40 operations. I've lost track at this point. She got hit by a car when I was 11. I mean, there was like so much. And so that, and then I saw how she would go to the doctors and the doctor would give her some medication. And I was like, and then she'd go again because she's having some kind of side effect. And I never liked medicine. I hated the way I felt after I got like vaccinated. It was so terrible. I was just like, my kids are never getting vaccinated. I did like a session one day and the lady's like, "Mom, do you know that the way that you feel about vaccinations is not just because of what's going on now? It's because of what happened to you too." And I was like, oh, but I didn't know that. But I knew that was true because there was that. And so it's been super interesting about what has evolved even in this era. And so I don't like medicine like that. And I absolutely believe that everybody has within them everything that they need to heal. We might be needing some guidance or learning tools, but that's what I wanted to do. And at first I was like, oh, I'm going to be a counselor. And so my mom said, oh no, those are a dime a dozen. But that really was the original calling. And so for years, I tried to not be a counselor or to go into that line. But it was who I was meant to be. And so, but everything that I've gotten to do, so I graduated from, I went I was going to start as a nurse and I'm like, not good at science and math. Let's like next. So then I went over to social work and since have actually developed like, I'm okay. I can do some algebra these days. It's crazy when you heal, you can do those things too. And so I saw in my internship with social work, I worked in the medical placement unit and there was all these kids that had been abused and were in foster care and they were like disabled because their parents abused them. And I found it so painful. I was like, oh my gosh, and not even having a real understanding of what that would from my mom's own background, that would also. So I kind of abandoned that and I left that for a while and I started teaching at a Catholic high school. I became a youth minister and a campus minister and I was doing retreat work and I loved it so much. And so I would take kids hiking and we would do all kinds of things and all the retreat work and getting them like to love Jesus, to love themselves, to to be able to be loved by their family. It was so great. So I did that for 10 years. In the meantime, I got a master's degree in religious studies, and I started teaching at the college level. And then I got married a second time. And then I was like, I'm going back to school. I'm getting a PhD in psychology. But once I started the master's degree, I felt like, it's so in the head. And the mind and the body are not split. And at the same time, my aunt was experiencing breast cancer, and my cousin's husband was a DO, an osteopath. And so he was looking around and he found German medicine and total biology, which is what I do. And is now called recall healing, but it's basically what we do. And so he's told me, Michelle, you have to come to this workshop. And I was like, really? He's like, yes, it's everything that we talked about. Because we would talk about how it was stress, but stress specific, right? It's like, oh, stress causes this, stress causes that. Yeah, but like, come on, it's got to be like something more. Well, it is. It's very specific on how we experience something, and it's based on what we've experienced in the past, what our ancestors experienced. That's how we're going to perceive it. And so it all unfolds like that. And so he's like, you got to come. So my aunt ends up healing at least part of it. And she had a recurrence later, but because she had another conflict. So it's crazy when you understand that disease, dis-ease, and illness are simply, and even behaviors and even marriages, all of that is the result of what happened before we were born, during our lifetime, and what happened in our ancestry. So I started taking those classes, and at the same time, I was finishing up my master's degree in psychology, and I took biopsychology and health psychology, and I was like, oh, this, and it just felt like it just resonated. So then I was in like the last bit, and I'm looking, and I was like, okay, what else? Where? So I started looking, and I find the PhD in mind body medicine. And so I started that in 2010. I finished officially in 2014, but I actually finished in 4 years. And so I was done in 2014. And it's been amazing. I love what I get to do. I love helping people, but it's been transformational for me. Like, I'm in a beautiful marriage. My kids, they're evolving. Things are happening. My oldest son just moved, and he's like, I saw him right before our call, and he's so happy. And my grandson, who had a brain tumor that we worked on, and he's now like, he had a little remnant, but this year, no more remnant, no more, like, it's just those kinds of things. And so it's yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And so master's in religious studies and psychology, and then a PhD in mind body medicine. But it was also, as I recognize today, I was trying to prove my existence, not just for my mom, but for my dad, to make it worth that it was a, kind of weird circumstances that I was conceived. And so then a child with that kind of story will continue to prove their existence. Don't worry. I'm going to make you super proud. I'm going to do everything to show that you didn't make a mistake. And look at, there we are. So
That feels like a huge energetic cord, like right when you just said that thing where you're like, don't worry, I'm gonna make you proud. It's almost like I was a mistake. I'm supposed to be here. Don't get rid of me, which comes from like your mom's trauma. The fact that you have such a great awareness about it too, even through the healing and telling your story is amazing. What I want to know the most is when you go from religious studies and being involved in like a church capacity for 10 years, but then you obviously know, like you said, the mind and the body aren't separate from each other. Did you have conflicting beliefs while you were doing all of the religious hikes and retreats, all of that with the Bible, and then moving into mind body? Were there any conflicting things? Were there any stifling things in the religious aspect that you felt freer when you got into the mind body and the recall healer work?
well, I never, like, honestly, I actually loved my faith, and I actually grew up not in like super rigid religiosity. I was like in the era of touchy-feely Jesus and come sit in my lap and let me love you. So my parents wanted to be also the hands and feet of Jesus, and they worked with the youth. And so obviously there are lots and lots of woundedness. And today I really understand that. But I think that everything that I experienced and that the church actually did hurt too. And just like, but I had to experience that to understand that that's not really what Jesus came for at all. He was just saying, like, hey guys, like, this religion thing is not a good thing. This religion thing, like, you can do religion, that's great. It's great for community, and there is something to be said about that. Um, but in the religiosity, and some of the Christians that I know are some of the meanest people. And some of the priests that I was around were not super great people either. But it speaks of the woundedness, and the woundedness is everywhere. So, but it especially draws in the church and that religion because they want so much to act like that. But we're all conceived through sex. So many sexual issues show up when you try to avoid that we're all conceived in sex. Like, hello. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I actually look at that time as learning and growth, and that I was truly like, I was a religion teacher. I got to be there for kids. Like, one of my students, her mom and dad, her dad killed her mom, then chose death by suicide. And so she was left. She was the youngest, and she had to be raised by her brothers, and it was super traumatic. But then I'm put in that role, and she babysat my kids a little bit, and like, I got to kind of take her under my wing, and so there was a lot of those kinds of opportunities. I coached, and so it was truly everything that I was called for, and I didn't allow for nonsense. And I was like, now once I understood, and I may not express my faith as I once did, but I certainly, there's certain pieces that I still hold super dear to my heart. And there's other things that I have, grown maybe beyond or understood in a different way. And so it was really just a movement right in. In fact, when I was in grad school, I was studying with the Center for Mind Body Medicine, which is what, when the book came out, like, that's the 501c3 that all the monies are getting donated to, which is so cool because it's for trauma. And so I'm here at the Center for Mind Body Medicine. We're in a little group. We're like sharing, we're doing these skills. And I was like, I realized in recall healing, we teach that everything repeats: the good, the bad, the indifferent, and especially the bad, because we'll brush it under the carpet. We'll keep going so that we don't have to pay attention. We're like super hurting, and let's just keep going. Keep a stiff upper lip. But that's when it's going to come back up. But if you honor it and you address it and you look and you say, oh, this just happened, this is related to that and that, let me just move beyond that, it allows for something different to unfold. So that's like the trauma piece. But the good thing, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 42 years old. I'm in these groups when I was 12 and also when I was 22, interestingly, because I just made that connection right now. When I'm 12, or actually 24, I was in the group, in retreats, doing leadership, saying, oh, I want to do this when I grow up. I want to teach workshops. I want to do that. And so just having that, and it was like, yes, that was like my calling. And so here I am, 30 years later in this little group. Wow, I'm feeling exactly the way I did. And so I just knew that I was on the right path, and all the people that I met, And I mean, truly what I teach is Jesus's teaching. Is like, it doesn't, when people, it kind of saved my butt a little bit having a master's in religious studies, because people are like, oh, that's woo woo that you teach. I'm like, oh, really? Give me a break. Well, I have it. And they're like, do you think that that is rooted in the Bible? So then I'm able to say, well, in the Bible, it talks about ancestral sin and the generational sin. And guess how that shows up? And then I can say things like, what do you think Jesus was doing? And so it's so cool because it really has saved me in many ways.
I do not have a master's in religious studies, but I have a non-master's in reading all religious stuff that I could possibly find. And that is the craziest thing you'll come up against with anybody that is really married to their religion like that, where it's just confirmation bias and they see you outside of any of Jesus's teachings. And I was the child growing up where I always had a relationship with Jesus. I just never felt I needed to prove that I had a relationship with Jesus. And I was also, I talked back, I was very rebellious. I questioned everything. And the church really just wants to do gooder girls to sit there and go along with a lot of things and not ask questions. So I always told people that Jesus walked me into the church to walk me out of it.
Nice.
Like that's the nicest way I could say it. I don't want to like condemn or judge anybody, even though I
Right,
feel
for
like
sure.
they're
Like
part of my
everybody
life
has,
too.
for sure.
But I'm like, the message and the relationship I have with him is not what I'm getting from all of these people and all of this weird hierarchy. And like you said, like people in the religious pillars, like they have this mask on Sundays, but like who are they, after they step off? I think that's a really good thing to bring up because no matter what woo-woo things I've gotten into or scientific or neuroscience or somatic healing or EFT, whatever it is, I've always been able to maintain a really good relationship with him. But the proving nature of it is something that I just thought, it was like being the golden child or the brown noser in school. It's like, oh, I know scripture the most, so Jesus loves me the best. And I was just like, have you read what you were saying? Like Jesus flipped tables. Okay, I know we like the image with the
Exactly.
lamb,
Like,
but he flipped tables and yelled at people. Okay, and that's the Jesus
exactly.
that I follow any week. So
Right. And that's
again,
it, for sure.
I just keep cutting you off. I'm sorry.
No,
Um,
no, I think I interrupted, so I'm sorry, but it's true. It's like it's totally like that. And when people quote the Bible, there's beautiful things in the Bible, totally. But when they quote it, and I say, I think that the way that you prove it is through your life, what you do with your hands and feet and your mouth. And so we do have to be mindful about what comes out of our mouth, both to ourselves and to others. And, like in my head, half the time, like there's a judgment, and I'm like, calm down, girl, like be nice. Like in your head, you got to be like, be nice.
that's a
But
good thing to bring up, though. Like, it is there. You just have to bring it into the awareness and be like, okay, we don't do that.
yeah,
Like, to sit there
or
and be like, oh,
honor it.
I'm
You
going to
can,
be totally non-judging one day, and I'll always have wonderful, great thoughts, or wonderful thoughts. That's unrealistic. Like,
I
you're going to have that voice coming. You have to
for sure.
bring it
Well,
up.
and you can honor it by saying, may they be safe from my judgment. So I
Mhm.
had a professor that said that, and I had been in total judgment of him, and then he said that, and I'm like, oh, like right pierced through the heart. But that is, and we can say it to ourselves too. So when we are the hardest on ourselves. So when we find ourselves in criticism and we're saying this and that about ourselves, the best thing that we can say is, may I be safe from my judgment.
I love that. May I be safe from my judgment? I need to write that down while it's fresh, because wow, absolutely love that. What are some of your favorite modalities that you learned and got into and used to this day to really help people? Like, was there one before you got into the workshop of recall healing? Was there something that just upped your beliefs in the work that Jesus was doing? Was there an energy modality? I know we talked about EFT or somatic. Like, what is in your Mary Poppins bag of tricks that you help people with?
That's so funny. Well, like that spirituality, it was more spirituality for me than religion. And so that's like, when I went to grad school, it literally was so that I could support my kids. That's really the reason. But then as a benefit, I could support my kids in a better way. And then I could start some other things. And so that's really what led me back. But those one-on-one experiences was really important. And then going through a divorce and also being Catholic, and, especially I just like, oh my gosh. And so I started to really understand more about sacred sexuality and wanting to like actually treat my body like a temple and to be kind to it. But when you've been sexually abused, that switch gets turned off. And it's really hard. And then you're looking for love in all the wrong places. And so then you get married and then it doesn't work out and it's terrible. And so I'm like, I don't want to sleep around, and I want to learn more so that this doesn't have to happen again. And so a friend of mine was going through, like, he had been separated and he found it's called imago therapy. And it's like a type of Harville Hendricks he taught at the seminary. He taught marriage and ethics and all of those things. And it's not a Christian book, but he found himself like going through a divorce after 38 years of marriage. And he's like, oh my God. So they went back to the drawing board and they started like kind of learning, and they realized that who we marry is a direct reflection of ourselves, of the pain, the suffering, the good, the bad, all of it. And that nature has a way of putting blinders on us. And we're like, oh my God, yes, this person, like, oh, I feel like I've known him forever. And then you get married and you're like, that's not what I signed up for. So, but it is actually what you signed up for. You just don't know that at the time. And so none of us have these skills. And so that book really was transformational. When I was actually doing my master's in religious studies, that kind of started my process in traditional therapy and kind of working on myself. And then I met my second ex-husband, but we were married for 20 years. We had a child together. He's a good guy, and neurodivergency is really challenging to be in a marriage, and it just makes it super hard. It's not that you can't do it, but and so in that time and then going back to grad school for psychology and learning about how, then I came on recall healing when I was 38. And so it's been nearly 20 years that I have been doing it. Like, it'll be, 20 years in a few months that I have been doing this work. And so recall healing really was a compliment and took imago therapy to the next level, actually. And then I've done sound therapy. I certified with the Center for Mind Body Medicine. My PhD is based on food as medicine, movement, mindfulness. I do some hypnosis. I do imagery for healing, and then the spirituality. And so the PhD was like totally who I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then the most recent thing that really has like sparked me is the human garage. And so everything I really think is like kind of comes together. I know emotion code. I know EFT. I love everything. And there's a time and a place for everything. And people don't resonate. It's not a one size fits all. So you kind of have to have many tricks in your bag. But that foundation with recall healing, if you have anything going on in your life, in your body, that's where I start. And I ask questions. We build a puzzle. We do a timeline. We do family tree. I teach people how to look at those things, to name it, claim it, so they can dump it and move on.
I was just about to say, if I was your client, like, what is the process for recall healing, especially with so many modalities? And I love that you say one size, or not one size fits all, because I think Western medicine kind of sells you that, like, oh, I feel depressed, here's a pill. Oh, I feel this, here's a pill. And everybody gets put in these weird little disease-filled boxes or symptom-filled boxes. And then when I moved into alternative, holistic, herbalism, all of that type of medicine, I was just like, I have to try so many things because so many different things are coming out. And
Oh,
EFT works on Tuesday, but yoga works on Thursday. And you don't know that until you learn all of them. So I think it's fascinating just the level of credentials that you have, the life experience that you've been through, but also you're able to sit down in such a neutral point with people and be like, okay, here's all the things that we're going to go through. Do you do any type of like muscle testing with them too?
yeah.
When you do that?
I do. I teach people how to muscle test, and that's what I tell people. I call myself an educator
Mm-hmm.
because I teach everybody how to do the same things that I have applied in my life that work. And so I won't tell a person to do a supplement. I won't tell a person to do anything unless I'm willing to do that because we're only as effective as we're willing to go. And so teaching people how to muscle test, how to check in with themselves, how to understand what's going on, how to look at their own specific timeline, how to see whose unfinished business they may be carrying, what they're carrying, what is showing up, why did it show up now, what happened in that time before they were born, and that first year of life. And when you build that, more insights come out. And then I teach little letting go tools. So the EFT comes in handy with that, the neuro linguistic programming, that is super powerful. Ho'oponopono is amazing. I love that as a skill. So reframing and doing certain things and then just honoring like whatever. It's been so amazing. I love what I do. And so just to see the huge transformations in people's lives is just it really is such a blessing.
Do you have to work with you just in person? Do you do anything online where people can get a hold of you? How, if we want to work with you, are we able to contact you?
So my website is Soul Tree Transformations with an S. There's contact info there. You can call my either me or my secretary. So my number is 626-494-3333. And then my secretary is 626-533-7019. But everything is on the website. And so Soul Tree Transformations, I have workshops on there, like an intro workshop on there. And so you can do some of the workshops online. You can work with me or with one of my practitioners. And so I have a couple practitioners that work with me and so we're kind of growing that way. And then I do workshops in person as well. And so I have a workshop in Georgia, a mind body skills workshop in Georgia in the first part of October. And if anybody would be interested, I'm also starting an institute to teach people how to do what I do. And so that's going to start in September. So all of that is on the website and you can, hit us up and I would love that. And just to share these tools. And then there's the book. So, the Together We Rise, the journey is such a long title. Together We Rise, the Wounded Healer's Journey Towards Ascended, Ascendance, towards ascendance, collective ascendance. It's a long
It's
title.
a huge title.
It's
Yes.
a huge title. I'm like,
Yeah, I'll have to put the link to the book down below too because
girl,
you're right.
so
Really, I'm
I
just like, it's
apologize,
called
but
Together We Rise, and then there's three sentences of what it is
so much.
describing. And it's a powerful sentence, don't get me wrong, I'm not making fun of it, but my
No,
goodness, it's a
no,
good title of people.
no. And I'm so appreciative to be a part of such an amazing collaboration with so many people that, like it really is a testament to how resilient people are, but
Mhm.
also that everybody's journey is a little bit different, but we all experience some forms of trauma.
Especially people that want to come into like a healing nature in some aspect. There's many circles that I've sat in. We've all shared some really intense stories. And it's just like, okay, well, speaking like energetically, like if you're this beautiful ball of light that came here to really help people,
Yeah.
like I bet dark forces would like to try to infiltrate or hurt you in some capacity. So I understand that, but there's just been so many beautiful people in the healing realm as well, and I just think it's inspiring to just so it's like, oh, if maybe the same thing happened to you, now you're like, okay, well, how did you get over that? Like, how did you really process that? How did you forgive them? Is there a modality that you use? Is there a prayer? Is there, you brought up, and I'll probably say it wrong, it's people hopo ono, but basically you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. You do it with like your hands over your heart. There's a whole thing, you definitely have to look it up. I'm just old things on it. When I started that was one of the best things that I used for a lot of the inner child, a lot of self-forgiveness of myself. Because, like, my thing was, like, I would cause a lot of self-harm. Like, I wasn't mad at the people that inflicted pain on me. I would in turn think that I was unworthy, and I would be inflicting pain on myself. And I spent years just in, like, a self-loathing state in my early 20s. So when I found that and I was able to, like, visit those places of my consciousness, and really forgive myself for like not knowing any better in that aspect. That was really one of the most powerful things that I learned to do and picked up from several practitioners. So I love even in your work, you're like, that is very powerful because you're absolutely correct. It's extremely healing to sit there and go through those forgiveness mechanisms.
For sure. And what's amazing, Cheyenne, is that what you just described about like that self-loathing, when you begin to understand that that is actually what you carry from mom and dad, that that's exactly how mom or dad have felt about themselves, then you start to realize, wow, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And then we take it on for our parents, and then we hate ourselves. And so similar for me, like I saw zero value. I was not a good wife, not a good this, terrible dad, terrible mom. There was no value. And so when you begin to reframe and realize like, wow, we're all made in a divine image. We all are divine human beings. And so it is our light, not our darkness. And so once we learn to embrace that, that's what scares us though. And so once we step more fully into that, but I really believe that through that journey of awareness and trauma, it really allows us to walk with other people. I love in the book Siddhartha where it says you can step in the river, but you can never step in the same river twice.
I've heard that, and I feel the same way even as you tell me it now. I'm like, oh, that's so true. But that's also for like moments of time, right? Like we're halfway, if not almost through our episode, and even though we record it, we still can't really relive the time that we've just had. So it really makes you think like the present moment really does matter. Taking care of yourself really does matter. Digging out all of those things that you've carried with you. I love when you use the word disease as dis-ease in the body. I don't think that that's discussed enough, but I know as a doctor of mind-body medicine, that's the core of your values, to get people to understand that these things that are inflaming on your physical body started as an emotional pattern or an ancestral pattern or something from childhood. There's so many different variations. So I love that you take the time to walk people through it. Is there any advice that you would give anybody who wants to start the journey but are scared?
I would say, first of all, if you have a pebble in your shoe, you got to deal with it. There's no way around it. Otherwise, you're going to get a blister. And so sometimes that blister is really big. And the alternative to not working on your stuff is that you get sicker, and then one thing piles on the other. And, so what's the worst that can happen? And just keep asking yourself, what is the worst that can happen? And I'm going to just take, one of my prayers has been, let me pray for the willingness to be willing to do what I need. And let me just take one little baby step and let me breathe. And whatever I'm doing is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and where I'm supposed to be in this moment. So be gentle with yourself, love yourself, see your value, and know that you touch many people's lives. And that's why you're here.